All right, welcome back to Bold Like a Leopard. Unfortunately, this is not going to be a pleasant video. There was the coronavirus is breaking out worldwide, which you could easily make a case is a much bigger story than what we're going to describe here, which is the grief over Kobe Bryant and the grief process in general. But I think it's something that is worth talking about. I know a lot of this channel focuses on current events and politics and some literature and on various topics that are only interesting to me. But I have to say that it's very, very interesting watching the various reactions to the death of Kobe, who played, I believe, two decades for the LA Lakers and unfortunately perished on Sunday in a tragic helicopter crash along with his daughter and a total of 9 people in California at Calabasas. And you know what? So there's the whole list of people who were involved in the crash. And I have to say, like, it's been very shocking to see how people who were huge basketball fans or specifically Kobe fans, they're just crestfallen. But also, a lot of the people are not feeling it because they believe that his life was not worth more than that of the other victims. So, Kobe, here's the list: Kobe Bryant and Gianna Bryant, ages 41 and 13, respectively. Gianna Altobelli, Carrie Altobelli, and Alyssa Altobelli. So that was hit. John Altobelli was a coach for the Orange County Community College, I believe. Orange Coast College. So their baseball team. He passed away, unfortunately. Christina Mauser, who was an assistant coach on Gianna's team. Era Zobayan, she also passed away. Sarah and Peyton Chester. So it's another. I mean, this is kind of pretty grim when somebody dies with their child, let alone because I've known people who lost a child. It's pretty awful when somebody has to. I mean, just visualizing how it must have been falling through the sky and dying together. I wonder how conscious they felt of what's awaiting them. So there were a lot of people criticizing the reaction, saying, well, for one thing, Kobe Bryant, what did he do? By and large, all he did was he would shoot a ball through a hoop or dribble. And in the grand scheme of things, that's not that important for society. Other people, of course, brought up the rape allegation from the mid-2000s, which was going to happen anyway. Unfortunately, there's a lot of gray area with that. I happen to subscribe to the belief that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And no, that's not because I'm a Kobe fan. In fact, quite the contrary. I always rooted against Kobe Bryant. I've always hated the Lakers. But you have to put personal prejudices aside when, A, there's accusations, and B, now that he's passed away, and he was absolutely a great ambassador for pro sports when he was playing. Unlike a lot of the other people playing now, you have this sport that's generally been overrun by a lot of self-absorbed prima donnas who are more into their own fashion brands and their media empires and things like that. So yeah, I respected Kobe Bryant even though I never supported him or the Lakers. He was certainly one to play with just a ruthlessness. It wasn't something where you would see him play a whole game and mail it in. That's not the way that I remember him. Obviously, some people might bring up games I didn't see. It's not like I was the biggest NBA fanatic for all those years, but he's generally known as a hardworking basketball player. And this was something I brought up yesterday, that in the modern sports era, he is one of the last athletes that's known primarily for just sticking to athletics, right? You have people like Kobe Bryant. You have Tiger Woods, although, granted his own checkered past. Derek Jeter, people who were very, very much uh, married to the sport that they played. And there's something to be said about that. There's a lot of athletes who today try to transcend their sport and become this globetrotting ambassador for everything, for causes and things like that, which there's nothing wrong with volunteering and giving your time and in many cases your fortune in order to help other people. But I don't think that what's been going on for the past few years with activist athletes and athletes who are more into either fashion statements or political statements, I don't think that that's been good for either them or the sport or their careers. And that's something that I think you could probably you could probably look across the board. It's been a huge problem, especially in football, to some degree in basketball as well. But basketball has seen a massive ratings drop, pro basketball especially, in the past few years. Apparently, ratings are down 27% since last year. So it's just a shit show. So that's as far as Kobe Bryant, the one that I remember. I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on Kobe Bryant. I'm not going to make some sort of display of how emotionally distraught I am. But I think it is a major issue that this guy who was just a role model, and I hate using the word role model, so I'll say this person who was admired and looked at as the paragon of excellence for so many young children, boys and girls, who wanted to play basketball at the top level. Yes, is it somewhat delusional? Absolutely. Does that mean that does that mean that the significance of it is superficial and that people are fussing over nothing? I don't think so. And I remember when Gene Wilder passed away. Think about that. Gene Wilder, who was an actor, who was suffering from the late stages of Alzheimer's and was merely a shadow of what he'd formerly been and hadn't acted in many years. When he passed away, I was pretty affected. Not to the degree that I was incapacitated, but I was like shocked. And this was an old person. This was a guy who had, his best years were way, way, way behind him. I'd have to say the last movie that I remember him playing in was probably produced when I was an infant or something. And then you have to transfer this whole issue to your own personal grief process if you're someone who's criticizing this. So a lot of people, they live a long time and they don't lose a parent, they don't lose anyone close to them. So losing someone like Kobe Bryant might be very significant. I personally, my mom passed away several years ago. I've done videos in the past about that. That was a wholly different situation, was expected. She'd had a long and painful illness. It was something that I had to cope with. Especially, I was very busy at the time. I was in undergrad school. I was doing my bachelor's degree. It was a very difficult, very stressful time, and I had, I guess, a very abbreviated grief period. So that was something that you can only learn through experience. You can't exactly experience grief vicariously. Some people, when Their kids, they watch a movie, they watch Old Yeller, and they see, or Bambi, they see a cartoon character die. That's their first experience with grief. Or, there's rare occasions when people do, unfortunately they lose a parent when they're very young, and unfortunately there's many cases where a parent loses a child at a very young age. Kids dying from leukemia. So no, this isn't the worst tragedy in the world. And someone was saying, well, why don't we look at people who are firefighters, first responders, um, soldiers, veterans, people who risk their lives in order to help others? Why don't we look at them with the same respect that we do to athletes like Kobe Bryant? And that's a fair question. And the answer is that fair questions don't often have fair answers. People attribute significance to individuals in an unfair way. Kobe Bryant was paid much, much more than a first responder. Kobe Bryant had much more attention from people, let's put it that way, than the average person on this, the average first responder, fireman, or whatever. Kobe Bryant could walk into a room and just all the attention would be drawn to him. Usually, I guess when you live in LA, it might be a little different. There's a lot of famous people in LA, so but he could move through those circles. So Kobe Bryant drafted at 18, so he lived a very charmed life. But we shouldn't hold it against him. We shouldn't hold it against his fans who are grieving for him that he may not have done the most for the world. But I think that all the joy and the thrilling experiences that he gave to fans through the years, you have to appreciate that. You have to, unless obviously you never liked basketball, you don't have to necessarily identify with a sport where there's been scandals over the years. There was of course the referee scandal, which actually involves the Lakers, believe it. So the Tim Donaghy scandal. So it's not as if I'm telling you that you should, shame on you for not grieving for Kobe. But there's been a lot of people who say, I don't understand it. Why are people so distraught over it? This was a huge, huge deal. People were saying yesterday on the radio that this is the worst death of a major sports icon since Roberto Clemente, and I would make the argument possibly longer than that, because Clemente was, he was relieving earthquake victims, noble cause, but to be fair, Roberto Clemente wasn't as huge of an icon as Kobe Bryant. He was from an era prior to superstardom in sports, not taking anything away from him. But yes, this is a huge deal. I don't think that this is anything to necessarily, cause 7 days of mourning. I think that the media is definitely milking this for everything that it's worth, and they're probably gonna try to make a buck out of it. There's gonna be people making souvenirs out of it. I don't think that that's in keeping with the spirit of someone passing away. Even someone like Kobe Bryant, who had lots of merchandise printed in his name when he was alive because he was a brand. But his daughter wasn't a brand. His daughter was somebody who was very dear to him. I think that there's plenty of evidence that whatever you think of him professionally, whether you hold it against him, some of the things that happened in the mid-2000s, he certainly wasn't some sort of scumbag. So whatever you think, just put it in the comments. You don't have to necessarily limit it to the Kobe topic. Again, the coronavirus is probably a bigger issue right now, but I don't have much insight to give into it. So please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on BitChute and Minds.com, as well as Subscribestar. All of those are at the handle at Chef Leopard, and on Gab at Starscream85.